In this video, we're going to explore the business model canvas as a tool, template, or canvas, as it's often referred to help you or a team with strategic thinking. Now, what's important about this is that strategy is about putting all the pieces of an organization together to deliver on the objective. And to do that, you really need to understand all the pieces. So as we use this, I consider the analogy that a business model canvas is to your business strategy and business model what a process map is to your process. You build a process map of your process, and it gives you the opportunity to have discussions about how to make it better. It doesn't tell you the answer. Now, this is the same thing. It gives you the opportunity, and so the craft of actually building your business model canvas is perhaps more important than the outcome itself. It can help facilitate thoughts, questions, challenges, or just facilitate a dialogue with a board of advisors, with partners, with a team at any level in the organization, including at the very top. So I consider this a tool to help facilitate a discussion, put everybody on a level playing field to engage in a visual representation. Now, as we walk through the business model canvas, we're going to start from the right to the left. Now, where you start is really not that relevant. Fundamentally, I believe it's an iterative process. You bounce back and forth between sections, asking new questions, testing hypotheses. But just for simplicity, we're going to start from the right and work our way left. So we're going to start with customer segments. Customer segments ultimately is how you define your market. Now, depending on your purpose in using the business model canvas, there might be a couple different approaches to this. I do think it's important to distinguish customers, which is who might actually buy it, versus consumers, which is who might actually use it. So understanding that distinction is important when looking at your market, again, whether an internal, new market, a shift in the market, because both have to interpret the value proposition in a very specific way. Now, a lot of other traditional methods, you can look at customer segments as a way to segment the market. You can have reams of data that you go to explore this, but fundamentally you are trying to understand who are you serving in your market. Now, the next part is the intersection between the value proposition and the customer segments, and there's two pieces to this. One is the customer relationship. Now, there's a lot of different ways to frame this, but fundamentally, there is a spectrum from transactional on one end to really long-term embedded on the other. So it's important to understand what type of relationship you're really building. There's also a spectrum around really whether it's value-driven or whether it's contractual. Now, the more you have commodities, the more you have easy to find services of any kind, the more it has to be contractually driven, and the more you have perhaps a unique value proposition, the more that relationship might be value driven. There's no wrong answer. It's simply understanding where you fit on that customer relationship. Because, for example, if you have a highly transactional relationship, you need to make the points of entry into that transaction as frictionless as possible. Whereas long term, you want to make sure the lockup, the non-contractual lockup, is as solid as possible. So it just affects how you think about your market. And then the channels is really how customers find you or how you find them. And I think that's another way to think about this is really what's inbound, what's outbound. As you might have a very referral-driven business, you might have a very sales-driven business. Again, no right or wrong answer, but thinking about it at those broad terms and then thinking about what the mechanisms are that really help you drive that channel. That becomes fundamentally important. Then we get to the value proposition. Now, I almost always draw this you pull a template down from the internet, which is fine. These columns are often the same width. I really like the value proposition being a little more space because I think we want to think bigger. Now, the three main questions that I ask is really, first of all, what problem are you solving for your customer? You're solving a problem. Now, whether they know about the problem, they don't, this is the value fundamentally that you are providing because you're solving a problem for them, one way or the other. Even if it's an emotional problem or a functional one or a transactional one, you have to know what problem you are solving. You have to also know through what mechanism or what form that solution takes place, right? Is it a service? Is it a product? Is it a subscription? Is it a one-time value? What form factor does that value actually get delivered in? And then I think what's often missing and needs to be clearly thought about is what is unique or special about your value, right? So just packaging up, solving a problem by packaging it up often isn't enough to really get differentiation. So this is where we are getting the differentiation. What is unique or special in how we solve the problem or how we package it or both put together? So really defining what's special becomes a key part of that value proposition. Now, we move to the back of the house, really what all enables that. And this is where we get the key activities. Now, I really look at key activities as stuff that is, key or special. And what I mean by that, what are the things that really enable the value proposition that might not be easily copied or replicated or bought on the outside? These are the things that you want to really maintain control of, right? Everybody has to pay their taxes. That's key, right? You have to do it, but it doesn't belong in this box. It's really about how key connects to your value proposition and does so in a special way that you really want to own control of the quality, the capacity, and the capabilities here. Key resources could be people, could be assets, right? Could be intellectual property. Could take place in a lot of different forms. Right? In a service business, very often, it could be technology, but very often is people. It could be assets, it could be contracts, it could be IP. There's a lot of different forms in which key resources, again, what helps you deliver that value? What would you not want to give up at almost any price so that you can continue delivering that value? Key partners are both contractual, right? So that's one part of it, but also relational as well. These could be suppliers. These could be governing bodies that you really depend upon to shape the regulatory environment, not necessarily in your favor, but at least not against your favor. These could be intellectual property where you're licensing technology from them, or where you're getting some of your key resources that help enable it. The idea is that just because you have key activities or key resources, they don't necessarily need to be in-house, but you do need to maintain control over the quality of that delivery. And so key partners, again, are very often essential in delivering the value. They're often what helps provide those key activities or key resources. They just aren't in-house. And then all of this feeds the bottom of this, which is really the cost structure, right? And here, I think the level of differentiation or the level of granularity you go into depends on how much those costs relate to the value proposition. Certain costs, administrative costs, again, paying your taxes becomes part of your cost structure. But you don't need to go into a great level of detail here. But what are those key costs that really affects the value and affects the pricing? And then the revenue streams, right? This is where you really get into different types of revenue, right? From subscription to transactional to extras. How do you think about your revenue streams as its value proposition. Now, again, all of this comes together and it doesn't paint a picture of what you need to do. It provides an opportunity to explore the relationship between these various categories. And what you should really be doing is looking at it and understanding, where do you have strengths that you need to double down on? Where do you have weaknesses that you need to close gaps on? And where do you need to pivot or make changes to what you're doing? And so depending on what problem you're trying to solve for your organization, you can use this business model canvas to have a more informed conversation. Ultimately, what comes out of this are problems that you need to solve for your organization. And they might be known problems that you know how to solve and need to execute. It's just a decision. They might be unknown problems, things that you need to learn how to overcome. But one way or the other, this creates problems that then drive your problem solving and drive your strategy. Hopefully this walk through the business model canvas demonstrates how you can use it as a thinking tool to help you shape your strategy.